High Commander Zorgoth of the Kaithrak hegemony tapped his largest talon against the polished obsidian of the war room table. The holographic display before him showed a swirling anomaly in the uninhabited Charon Nebula. Minor stellar flares, most likely, annoying as they disrupted Kaithrak long-range sensor arrays, but ultimately insignificant. What was significant and irritating was the tiny, unauthorized human research vessel blithely ignoring the posted Kaithrak quarantine boys and nosing right into the nebula. Humans, Zorgoth rumbled, his voice like rocks grinding together. His adjutant, a younger Kaithrak named Skral, shimmered his scales in agreement. The Kaithrak were a proud, ancient reptilian race. They valued discipline, order, and adherence to established protocols. They had seen countless younger races flicker into existence and then often flicker out due to foolishness. Humans, in their estimation, were prime candidates for such an exit. The Galactic Concord, of which the Kaithrak were influential members, generally tolerated humanity's presence. They were newcomers, barely a blip on the cosmic timeline, but they were energetic and surprisingly adaptable. However, their most defining trait, from the Kaithrak perspective, was a boundless, almost pathological curiosity coupled with a staggering lack of foresight. They were excessively curious and reckless meddlers. Always poking, always prodding, always sticking their soft, fleshy noses where they didn't belong. The vessel Wanderlust, Skral reported, his forked tongue flicking, registered to a Dr. Aris Thorne, a xenoarchaeologist, known for unsanctioned exploration of precursor sites. Zorgoth snorted, a puff of hot air ruffling the quills on his neck. Precursor sites, they'll be the death of those apes yet. Some things are best left undisturbed. The galaxy is full of sleeping monsters, and the humans seem determined to ring every doorbell. The Kaithrak had a healthy respect for the precursors, the unimaginably ancient races who had seeded the galaxy with mysteries and occasionally deadly automated systems. Kaithrak doctrine was clear: observe from a very great distance, catalog, and under no circumstances, touch. Humans, on the other hand, seem to operate on the principle of if it's old and weird, let's poke it with a stick and see what happens. They'd already caused several minor interstellar incidents by accidentally activating forgotten precursor trinkets, a localized time dilation field here, an aggressive self-repairing garden sprinkler there. Annoyances, mostly, so far. Shall I dispatch a cruiser to escort them out of the quarantine zone, High Commander? Skral asked. Zorgoth considered. The Charon Nebula was a Kaithrak military exclusion zone due to residual radiation from an ancient stellar event, or so the official story went. In truth, it bordered a region containing a string of particularly enigmatic precursor structures the hegemony preferred no one, especially meddling humans, knew about. No, let them bumble. The radiation flares will likely disable their delicate systems soon enough. It will be another lesson in why some doors are best left unopened. Monitor them. If they stray too close to Site Zero, then intervene. Lethally, if necessary, but make it look like an accident. Skral bowed, as you command, High Commander. Deep within the Charon Nebula, aboard the cramped but surprisingly resilient research vessel Wanderlust, Dr. Aris Thorne was ecstatic. Look at these energy signatures, Lena, off the charts, completely anomalous. Lena Hansen, the ship's engineer, pilot, and Thorne's long-suffering second-in-command, squinted at her console. She was a woman of few words and many talents, chief among them keeping Thorne's enthusiasm from getting them all killed. Looks like a Kaithrak, keep out, sign to me, Aris. Those quarantine boys weren't just for decoration. Nonsense, my dear Lena, Thorne exclaimed, his wild grey hair seeming to crackle with excitement. He was a man driven by an insatiable curiosity, a burning desire to understand the universe's deepest secrets. Regulations, exclusion zones, and common sense were often secondary concerns. The Kaithrak are overly cautious. This nebula, it's humming with precursor activity. I can feel it in my bones. Their third crew member, Jax, a young xenolinguist and tech specialist with a knack for deciphering alien gibberish, piped up from his station. Picking up localized gravimetric distortions, Dr. Thorne, and tachyonic echoes, definitely precursor, very, very old. He pushed his glasses up his nose. And the Kaithrak patrol patterns are pointedly avoiding this specific sector. almost like they know something is here they really don't want found. That was all the encouragement Thorn needed. Exactly, they're sitting on something big. Set a course for the epicenter of those distortions, Lena, maximum stealth. Let's see what secrets the Karen Nebula is hiding from its nosy neighbors. Lena sighed but complied. Arguing with Thorn when he was in discovery mode was like trying to argue with a supernova. You just held on tight and hoped for the best. She was, however, triple-checking their shield integrity and plotting several escape routes. One learned to be prepared when working with Aris Thorn. Their destination was a rogue planetoid, cloaked by dense gas clouds and exotic particle fields that scrambled most conventional sensors. It didn't appear on any star charts, but Thorn's custom-built, slightly illegal long-range precursor energy detector had sniffed it out. As they drew closer, a vast artificial structure resolved itself on their screens. It wasn't a city or a station, but a colossal, perfectly spherical object embedded deep within the planetoid, half exposed to space. Its surface was matte black, absorbing all light, and etched with geometric patterns that seemed to shift and writhe if you stared at them too long. Magnificent, Thorn breathed, his eyes wide. Site Zero, I was right. It's giving me the creeps, Aris, Lena muttered, her hand hovering over the shield controls. Energy readings are through the roof, but it's dormant, too quiet. The quiet before the symphony, Lena, Thorn declared. He was already suiting up. Jax, find us a landing site. We're going exploring. Landing the Wanderlust on the pockmarked surface near the colossal sphere was tricky. The local gravity was unstable, and strange energy fields tugged at the ship. But Lena, as always, managed it with her usual unflappable competence. The airlock hissed open, and Thorn, followed by a reluctant Jax and a heavily armed Lena, who insisted on carrying a pulse rifle for sample collection, stepped out onto the alien surface. The sphere loomed above them, an impossible artifact of a bygone age. The silence was profound, broken only by the crunch of their boots on the crystalline dust. This is it, Thorn whispered, reverence in his voice. A primary control node, I'd wager. For what, I wonder? They found an entrance, a perfectly circular aperture that dilated open as they approached, as if expecting them. Inside, a long, dark corridor sloped downwards, lit by faint, pulsing glyphs that seemed to follow their movement. Definitely precursor, Jax said, running his scanner over the walls. The linguistic roots are unlike anything in the Concord database, infinitely complex, but there's a repetitive motif, almost like a warning. Or an instruction manual, Thorn countered gleefully, striding ahead. The Kaithrak hegemony, and indeed the wider galactic Concord, categorized such phenomena as minor stellar anomalies or unusual sensor ghosts. Reports of flickering lights on distant, uninhabited worlds, faint energy surges from empty space, brief, unexplained gravitational lensing. Nothing to worry about. The galaxy was a big place, full of unexplained burps and hiccups. Their long-range observatories noted them, filed them, and moved on. The prevailing wisdom was that these were simply background radiation from the universe's ongoing processes, or perhaps echoes of ancient, long-dead precursor technologies fading into cosmic irrelevance. What no one realized, except for 3 humans currently delving deep into a forbidden precursor structure, was that these minor anomalies were not random. They were part of a pattern, a sequence, an awakening. Deep inside the sphere, the corridor opened into a vast, cavernous chamber. At its center, a colossal, multifaceted crystal pulsed with an inner light, bathing the room in an ethereal glow. Intricate conduits, like metallic veins, snaked from the crystal into the walls, the floor, the ceiling, disappearing into the depths of the planetoid. Consoles covered in shifting, unreadable symbols ringed the central crystal. The heart of the matter, Thorn breathed, approaching one of the consoles. Jax, can you interface? See if we can wake this old bird up gently. Jax looked dubious. Dr. Thorn, this system is millennia older than anything I've ever worked on. The power fluctuations alone are terrifying. Gently might not be an option. But he set to work, his fingers flying over his portable interface, attempting to find a common protocol, a handshake, anything that would allow him to peek into the system's core logic. Lena, meanwhile, was examining the strange glyphs on the wall with her rifle's tactical scope. Aris, these patterns, they're not just decoration, they're schematics, and they're showing a network, a vast, galaxy-spanning network. Her voice was grim. This place isn't just a control node, it's a nexus. Suddenly, Jax yelped. I'm in, sort of. I've bypassed some kind of lockout. The core data streams are overwhelming. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose, but I'm getting something, a primary directive. The central crystal flared, its light intensifying. The consoles around the room began to hum with a rising thrum of power. What is it, Jax? What does it say? Thorn urged, his eyes gleaming. It calls itself the Silent Guardians, Jax stammered, his face pale. A defensive system, galaxy-wide, designed to sterilize emergent threats posing existential risk to systemic harmony. He swallowed hard. And it's not dormant, Dr. Thorn. It's in its final activation sequence. Lena swore, the stellar anomalies, the energy surges, it's not random noise. It's the system powering up node by node. This sphere is one of the last ones. Activation trigger, Thorn demanded, his scientific curiosity now battling a rising tide of alarm. What sets it off? What defines an emergent threat? Jax's eyes scanned the rapidly scrolling data on his interface. It's looking for a specific confluence of factors: rapid technological expansion beyond established precursor thresholds, aggressive interstellar colonization, a certain level of uncontrolled energy broadcast across multiple spectra. He looked up, his expression horrified. Dr. Thorn, it's describing us, not just humans. It's describing almost every spacefaring race in the galactic concord. The central crystal pulsed again, a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through their bones. On a vast, holographic display that shimmered into existence above the crystal, a map of the galaxy appeared. Thousands, then millions, of points of light began to flare across it, connected by intricate lines of energy. Those are the Guardian nodes, Lena said, her voice barely a whisper. They're all coming online. The trigger, Jax, Thorn pressed. There must be a final catalyst, what pushes it from standby to active cleansing. Jax frantically worked his interface. It's a specific energy signature, a resonant frequency. If a sufficient number of developing civilizations, oh gods, if they simultaneously broadcast on a specific, narrow band of hyperwave, a band commonly used for rudimentary interstellar hailing and distress calls by emerging species. Thorn stared at the galactic map. So, if enough young races cry for help, or just try to talk to each other using the most basic FTL comms, the Silent Guardians interpret it as a pandemic of uncontrolled, potentially hostile expansion, Jax finished, his voice shaking. And the sterilization protocol begins, sector by sector. He pointed a trembling finger at a countdown timer that had appeared on his display. Full system activation, galactic sterilization cycle commences in 72 standard hours. A cold dread settled over Thorn. His thirst for knowledge, his reckless curiosity, had led them to an abyss. They hadn't just poked a sleeping monster, they had stumbled into its open, waking maw. The Kaithrak, Lena said suddenly. Their quarantine, their avoidance of this place, they knew or suspected. The arrogant lizards, they knew something like this was here, and they just put up a do not enter sign and hoped for the best. We have to warn them, Thorn said, galvanized. We have to warn everyone. 72 hours. Lena, get us out of here. Jax, download everything you can. Every scrap of data on this system, its trigger, its operational weak points, if there are any. The Wanderlust, a tiny speck of meddling humanity, blasted away from the rogue planetoid, leaving the Silent Guardian Nexus humming with impending, galaxy-wide doom. Their first call, once they cleared the nebula's interference, was to Kaithrak High Command. High Commander Zorgoth was not pleased to hear from Dr. Aris Thorn. You violated a restricted military zone, human. You ignored quarantine protocols. Whatever fanciful tales you have concocted to excuse your trespass will fall on deaf ears. High Commander, this isn't a tale, Thorn insisted, his voice strained. Site Zero, as you call it, it's a control nexus for a precursor doomsday weapon. The Silent Guardians, it's activating. The recent stellar anomalies, They're part of its power-up sequence. It's targeting the entire galaxy. Skrull, listening in, let out a derisive hiss. Precursor doomsday weapon, human, your imagination is as overactive as your disregard for sovereign borders. The anomalies are minor, predictable stellar phenomena. They are not, Thorn shouted, his image flickering on Zorgoth's holographic display. There's a trigger, a specific hyperwave frequency. If enough civilizations broadcast on it, the system will initiate a sterilization protocol. We have less than 3 days. Zorgoth's eyes narrowed. The human was clearly distressed, but his claims were outlandish. The Kaithrak had monitored Site Zero for centuries. It was ancient, powerful, yes, but dormant, a relic. Your evidence, human. Jax quickly transmitted a compressed data burst, schematics, energy readings, the precursor linguistic analysis. It's all there, Commander. The activation sequence, the trigger parameters, the countdown. A Kaithrak technician in the war room began analyzing the data. After a few tense moments, he looked up, his scales pale. High Commander, the energy signatures, they correlate with recent sector-wide anomalies. The linguistic deconstruction, while primitive, it suggests a threat assessment matrix. He paused. The patterns, they are not random. Zorgoth felt a cold knot tighten in his gut. Could this reckless human, this interstellar meddler, actually be right? The implications were staggering. He had always feared what lay dormant in the galaxy's dark corners. Even if this Guardian system exists, Zorgoth said slowly, why would it activate now? The galaxy has been stable for millennia. It's us, Commander, Thorn pleaded. It's the newer races, humans, the Valerians, the Signans, dozens of us, all reaching a similar technological threshold, all using similar basic FTL communication bands. We're the emergent threat it's designed to neutralize. The Kaithrak and other elder races might be too advanced or too different to fit the profile. The thought was horrifying. The younger races, in their climb to galactic relevance, were unknowingly about to trip a wire that would obliterate them and possibly drag the older races down with them. Skepticism still warred with a dawning unease in Zorgoth. Your reputation precedes you, Dr. Thorn. You are known for embellishment. There's no time for embellishment, Thorn roared. Damn it, Lizard, are you going to let your prejudice kill us all? Check the precursor databases, check the energy signatures, this is real. Before Zorgoth could reply, an urgent alert flashed across the war room. A priority message from the Galactic Concord Central Command. Similar reports of escalating, unusual energy phenomena were flooding in from across multiple sectors. Several Concord member worlds, particularly younger colonies, were reporting sudden, catastrophic atmospheric events and unexplained technological failures. The minor stellar anomalies were becoming less minor. The Kaithrak technician spoke again, his voice strained. High Commander, the data from the human vessel, it details a way to potentially disrupt the Guardian network's final synchronization, a specific counter-frequency broadcast, but it would require a coordinated, galaxy-wide effort, and precise knowledge of the network's resonant harmonics, knowledge only found at Site Zero. Zorgoth looked at Thorn's desperate face on the screen. The human's reckless meddling, his infuriating curiosity, had taken him to the one place in the galaxy that might hold the key to survival. If he was right, humanity's greatest flaw had just become the galaxy's only hope. Dr. Thorn, Zorgoth said, his voice stripped of its usual arrogance. Transmit everything you have, every detail, and prepare your vessel to rendezvous with the Kaithrak flagship Ironscale. Your unique expertise may be required. The news spread through the Galactic Concord like wildfire. Panic, then disbelief, then a dawning, terrified acceptance. The silent guardians were real, and they were waking up. Dr. Aris Thorn, the notorious meddler, suddenly found himself the most sought-after individual in the galaxy. His data, once dismissed as the ravings of an eccentric, was now being pored over by the brightest minds of every species. The Kaithrak, to their credit, moved swiftly. High Commander Zorgoth, swallowing his pride, put the full resources of the hegemony behind Thorn's findings. He convened an emergency session of the Concord Council, presenting the humans' data with a grim endorsement. We dismissed human curiosity as a dangerous flaw, Zorgoth announced to the assembled dignitaries, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. We called them reckless, but their recklessness has led them to a truth we, in our caution, overlooked. Their meddling has uncovered a threat that could extinguish us all, and in their intrusive exploration, they may have found our only salvation. The plan was desperate. Using the information gleaned from Site Zero, Jax had identified a narrow window, a specific set of counterfrequencies that, if broadcast with precise timing and amplitude across the entire Guardian network, could create a cascade failure, a desynchronization that would force the system back into dormancy before it could unleash its sterilization wave. But it required perfect coordination. Every major race, every significant outpost had to participate. And they had less than 48 hours. Thorn, Lena, and Jax found themselves on the bridge of the Iron Scale, a massive Kaithrak dreadnought surrounded by stern-faced reptilian officers who now looked at them with a strange mixture of awe and trepidation. They were the galaxy's foremost experts on a doomsday weapon no one else had even known existed a few days prior. The resonant harmonics are shifting slightly as more nodes come online, Jax reported, his fingers flying over a Kaithrak console adapted for his use. We need to adjust the counter-frequency broadcast in real time. It's like trying to tune a galaxy-sized instrument while it's actively trying to kill you. Lena, ever practical, was working with Kaithrak engineers to ensure the Iron Scale's transmitters could handle the exotic frequencies required. If we overload these emitters, we're space dust, she grunted, tightening a magnetic coil. No pressure, kids. Thorn coordinated with scientists and leaders from dozens of species via a chaotic, multi-species communication network. He explained, cajoled, and occasionally shouted, trying to get everyone on the same page. The Xyla, with their precision, were invaluable in calibrating broadcasts. The Krill, with their logic, helped model the cascade failure. Even the normally reclusive ponderous Thek, sentient gas clouds, offered their vast computational abilities. The final hours were a blur of tension. Across the galaxy, ships, stations, and planetary defense grids prepared to broadcast the counter-frequencies. It was a monumental undertaking, a symphony of desperation played on a galactic scale. 30 seconds to optimal broadcast window, Jax announced, his voice tight. Zorgoth stood beside Thorn, his usual stern demeanor replaced by a grim focus. The fate of the galaxy rests on the findings of human meddlers, he murmured, almost to himself. There is a certain cosmic irony to it. Thorn managed a weak smile. We prefer proactive xenoarchaeologists, Commander, but we'll take meddlers if it means we all get to see tomorrow. Broadcast, Jax yelled. Across millions of light years, the counter-frequencies surged. The silent Guardian network, poised on the brink of its devastating activation, shuddered. On the holographic map aboard the Iron Scale, the angry red lights of the active nodes flickered. Some went dark, others pulsed erratically. The intricate web of energy connecting them began to fray. For an agonizing minute, nothing seemed to happen. The countdown timer to sterilization continued its relentless march. Then, with a cascade of dying lights, the Guardian network began to collapse. Sector by sector, the threat receded. The deep, resonant hum that had thrummed beneath the fabric of reality faded into silence. A collective sigh of relief, so profound it was almost palpable, swept through the bridge of the Iron Scale and echoed across the galaxy. In the aftermath, the galactic concord was a changed place. The silent guardians, though dormant, were a sobering reminder of the galaxy's hidden dangers, and humanity's role within the concord underwent a radical re-evaluation. Dr. Aris Thorn, Lena Hansen, and Jax became reluctant heroes. They were no longer seen merely as excessively curious and reckless meddlers. Instead, they, and by extension humanity, were hailed as pioneers of proactive threat assessment. Their insatiable curiosity, their willingness to poke into the unknown, was now understood not just as a quirk, but as a vital, if occasionally alarming, asset. The Kaithrak hegemony officially revised its doctrines regarding precursor sites. While caution was still paramount, a new addendum encouraged controlled, multi-species exploratory initiatives with significant human participation. High Commander Zorgoth even found himself grudgingly enjoying Thorne's rambling lectures on precursor linguistics, though he'd never admit it publicly. Humanity didn't suddenly become less curious or less prone to poking things. But now, when a human research vessel ventured into a restricted zone, the response was less likely to be a warning shot and more likely to be an intrigued, if wary, hail. "Dr. Thorne, is that you? What have you found this time? And is it going to try and kill us all, or just mildly inconvenience us?" The galaxy had learned that sometimes the greatest discoveries and the most critical warnings came from those brave or foolish enough to ignore the keep-out signs. And humanity, it turned out, was very, very good at ignoring signs. Their meddling had saved the galaxy, proving that sometimes a little reckless curiosity was exactly what the universe needed.